This is Pradeep Barik. Thanks for your support in the previous video. Now I will be solving GATE question or Mechanical Engineering 2004. And yeah, I want to say few things like even though I'm solving this question paper, I never claim my omnipotency over it. There might be a few questions where you may not be understand how it has been solved, so you might needing some more clarification. So you just comment it, and there might be also possibility that I have solved the question in a wrong way and I'm getting something wrong here. So you can verify me in the comment section. Okay. And as I have mentioned there in my comment that you can just, if you don't have time, these videos are very long, so it may take a lot of time for you to watch. So just like it so that it goes into the playlist of your liked videos, and you can watch it later. And the best watching for this video is 16:9 aspect ratio. Okay. So these are some preliminary things that I want to talk before starting the solution. So let us start here. So let's start the question for GATE Mechanical 2004. So yeah, many people, one more thing I want to say, that many people were telling why you are solving from 2003 to 2020. Why not 2020 back to 2003? The reason behind this is, actually in 2003, if I'm solving question paper of the year 2004, I will find some sort of similarity that you will be getting in 2003 from the 2003 paper. That we will see in few questions. They have asked the questions based on few things that they have asked in 2003. I want to show the amount of repeatability of the question. Similarly, if you solve 2017, 18, 19, 20 paper, you will find for example, a concept called standard distribution curves. The concept of standard distribution curves have been focused year after year in these year 2017, 18, 19, 20. They have focused on it. Similarly, the best way to go through any GATE question paper is to solve its previous year question and apply those properly, and then solve the test series. So my intention is to help you to get all the question paper GATE previous year mechanical question paper in a single playlist, so that you can, just after watching and solving it from your end, you can go give any test series available in the net. And second thing, whenever I'm solving this question paper, please use your own GATE calculator, and whatever values you either solve it from your end, or you just put those values in the GATE calculator and get those values similar that what I am getting. Because GATE is not a matter is not just an examination for checking your concept. It also checks your numerical ability. It checks your aptitude in terms of your corresponding engineering field. So application of your knowledge in terms of GATE calculator, the GATE specific calculator, is very, very important. I request you to download it either in your Android phone or in your computer, so that you can apply all those calculations there. That is very, very important. So let's start with the GATE 2004 question. Question number 1, they have given a parametric equation in form of x and theta. So as you know, I will be using two markers. Green marker, I think yellow marker I will be using the right hand side, yellow marker, and green marker I will be using in the left hand side. Okay, so let's start now. So the first question is actually belongs to it's a parametric type of expression where two variables are represented in terms of third variable. So let's take x is equal to a plus sine theta, y is equal to a into 1 minus cos theta. We have to find dy by dx. It is very simple. We know that dy by dx is equal to dy by d theta divided by dx by d theta. We will calculate the value of dx by d theta and then dy by d theta, and just divide it those two in order to get our corresponding dy by dx. Even though we solve it, we won't be getting a perfect answer, so we need some sort of algebraic or rather trigonometric expansion in order to get the answer, that is tan theta by 2. So here answer will be tan theta by 2. Let's see question number 2. Question number 2. The angle between the two unit vectors, coplanar vector at P 0.86 and 0.50 and Q 0.259 and 0.95. We will first write in terms of vector. So P is equal to 0.86 I cap, 0.5 J cap, Q is equal to 0.259 I cap and 0.5956 J cap. In order to find the angle between these two, we will simply use the cosine formula, that the dot product formula, that is a vector dot b vector is equal to a vector magnitude into b vector magnitude into cos theta. From here we can get the value, corresponding value of cos theta. So from here we can calculate the cos theta value. I am getting cos theta value as 47.98, which is nearly equal to 45 degrees. Okay, few of the questions I may not be getting the exact answer. Sometimes I have been getting a wrong answer, so I have solved it and got the correct answer, and few of the questions I will be getting an answer which is near to the options, so I will be informing it whenever I will be solving. Now question number 3. The sum of the eigenvalues of the matrix given below is this. So you need to find the sum. You need to find the sum of eigenvalues. We know that for eigenvalues there are two properties. First, the sum of the eigenvalues is nothing but the sum of the value of the diagonals. Then what is the product of eigenvalue? Product of eigenvalue is equal to the determinant of the corresponding matrix. Here they have asked the sum of the eigenvalue. It will be nothing but the sum of our diagonal. That is 1 plus 5 plus 1, that is equal to 7. Question number 4 is a very interesting one. You see, they have given a figure. It's a truss. So the truss is each member of the truss suffers an axial forces. That means the forces are passing through its axis. And the most important concept of the truss is it doesn't undergo any sort of deflection or slope. You won't find, since they have given the figure, so you won't find any sort of deflection at any point. So we have to find the member Ln, and they have given a mass of 100 kg acting at the point M. That means K, L, M are collinear. When it's a collinear, that means the force in KL is equal to the force in LM. That means there is no deflection at the point L. When there is no deflection at the point L, so that means the Ln member is equal to 0. In other words, we can say these two forces are distributed at the point L. There is no force, means the net force acting at the point L is equal to 0, because the force acting at LK is actually balanced by the force LM. And since there is no deflection, therefore there is no deflection at the point L. There is no slope at the point L also. Therefore, the force that is acting at Ln is equal to 0. Okay. So the force acting at Ln is equal to 0. Now question number 5. You see, one thing again I want to reiterate. No matter how long the question is, my new question will always, my new solution of a new question will be always start from a new page. Okay, here you can see after question number 5 I would have started question number 6 onwards, hence onwards, but I did not intentionally never use it in order to make the process as lucid, as simple and as visible as possible. Okay, if you have any issues regarding it or anything regarding my videos, do let me know in the comment section. I will be happy to resolve it. Now let's see question number 5. In terms of Poisson's ratio mu, the ratio of Young's modulus and shear modulus is. Basically they are asking the relation between E and G. So there is a basic formula that you need to remember. This is the formula. This is the formula, that is E is equal to 2G 1 plus mu is equal to 3K 1 minus 2 mu. So from here I will take these two values, because these two terms they have correlate. They try to establish the correlation between these two terms. So from here we can find E by G is equal to 2 into 1 plus mu. It's very simple question. Question number 6 again. Question number 6. So the basic formula that will be used here is this one. dp by dg is equal to ng by np is equal to zp by zg. Now what is dp and dg? So p represents the pinion gear. Pinion gear is the gear which is actually a driver gear, and in gear terminology rather we generally use a pinion is the gear which is a driver gear, and g is the gear which is used for driven gear. So diameter of the pinion divided by diameter of gear is equal to speed of the gear divided by speed of the pinion is equal to teeth of the pinion divided by teeth of the gear. That means the speed of the gear, rather we can say diameter of the diameter is directly proportional to the teeth, and diameter is inversely proportional to the speed. Okay, so since they have given the correlation between diameter and in this question they have given the correlation between the teeth and the diameter, teeth and the speed. So I will be using this particular relation, that is speed and teeth. So from here I can get the value of speed and teeth. Okay, now from here power is equal to 2 pi n by 60 into torque. So we know that means I can correlate simply that this power is equal to torque into RPM. Okay, omega. Oh, RPM can be written as 2 pi n by 60, where n is nothing but radians per minute, or n is radian per second, or radian per minute rather. In this case, it is radians per minute. Okay. So anyways, we can say Tp into Np is equal to Tg into Ng. Why? Because 2 pi 60 is also constant, and second, they have not mentioned anything regarding the power. That means the power transmitted by the pinion is equal to power accepted by the gear. That is no friction that is acting taking place. Therefore, Tp into Np is equal to Tg into Ng. From here, we can calculate the torque that is accepted by the gear portion. That is transmitted to the gear portion rather. Therefore, torque transmitted to the gear portion is equal to Tp into Np by Ng. So from here we can get Tg is equal to 60 Newton meter. So answer will be 60 Newton meter. Question number 7. You see there is small mistake in the question that they have mentioned. They have not mentioned actually what is the compressive stress. Actually the compressive stress it is acting here is 100 megapascal in a compressive way, and the tensile stress that is acting is 100 megapascal that is acting. So looking at this figure, okay, sigma x is equal to 100 megapascal. Similarly here also sigma x is equal to 100 megapascal. Sigma y is equal to minus 20 megapascal. Minus represent compressive stress. Radius of the Mohr circle. So radius of the Mohr circle is nothing but the shear stress that is acting on a principal planes. Okay, now this is the normal plane that is acting, but when it comes to principal plane, it may be you may calculate further in some later videos. You can find how to calculate the principal planes, but in this figure you see the normal plane, and the radius of the Mohr circle is nothing but the shear stress acting at a principal plane. So shear stress of the net shear stress that is acting on the principal plane is given by square root of sigma x minus sigma y ka whole square plus tau xy whole square. Here there is no shear stress that is acting. There is no shear stress. There is only normal stress components that are acting. So I will simply use this and I will keep this as 0. From here I get 60 megapascal that is acting, and this is nothing but the shear stress in the principal plane is equal to 60 megapascal, which is nothing but the radius of the Mohr circle if we draw. Let's see question number 8. Question number 8. For a mechanism shown below, the behavior, the mechanical advantage for the mechanism shown below, the mechanical advantage of a given configuration is. So you can see here given configuration. What is mechanical advantage? Mechanical advantage is equal to, you see here, from here I will start. Mechanical advantage is equal to power output by power input. That means how much minimum input power that I need to give to get a maximum power output. This is nothing but our mechanical advantage. For example, if you have seen screw jack, we can lift the entire car using the screw jack within a single hand. Why? Because the input that we give is very less, and the output that is getting from that machine, the lever, ultimate lever, is very high. Similarly, in case of hydraulic machines, when we try to lift a car, we give a very less force from our feet with a cylinder of a less diameter, and that is getting actuated at the other end of a cylinder having a large diameter in that case. Okay, I hope you can easily imagine those scenario. That is nothing. These are nothing but the synonyms of mechanical advantage. How much less you can give in order to get a very large amount of power output power at the other end. So we know that power is equal to T output by T omega divided by T input by T omega, where T is the torque and omega is the your angular velocity. So we know that mechanical advantage. So power output by power input is equal to T output by T input, and omega output by omega input rather. It's not output, it's input. Okay. So mechanical advantage for any machine is actually constant. Okay. You take any machine, the mechanical advantage is constant. That means we can establish a fact that mechanical advantage is equal to T output by T input is also equal to omega input by omega output. Okay. So now coming to our question. In this figure, omega is equal to, see, this is our driving shaft, the crank. Okay. And the slider is our output shaft. Output link. So the output link initially right now is at rest. That means omega input is how much? It is 0. When it is 0, I am getting mechanical advantage as infinity. So therefore our mechanical advantage is infinity. Question number 9. A vibration isolation from the floor using springs, if the ratio of excitation frequency of the vibration of the machine to the natural frequency of the isolation system is equal to 0.5. I will explain you what all terms are. Transmissibility of the ratio of isolation is, now we know that R is equal to omega by omega n, that is equal to 0.5. Okay, they have given that the excitation frequency of the machine to the natural frequency of the isolation 0.5. R, we give a term R is equal to omega by omega n is equal to 0.5. Then they have not mentioned anything regarding the damping. That means there is no damping acting in this system. So therefore we kept zeta, that is equal to C by Cc, or rather we can say zeta is equal to 0. So what is transmissibility ratio that they have asked? We know that transmissibility ratio is equal to 1 plus 2 into zeta r whole square raised to the power 1 by 2 whole divided by square root of 1 plus r square 1 minus r square whole square plus 2 zeta r whole square. This is a fundamental formula that we generally come across while dealing with vibrations. That is equal to, since zeta is putting this value of zeta and r, we can get finally 1 plus 0 square root of 1 minus 0.5 square whole square plus 2 into 0. Finally we get transmissibility ratio is equal to 4 by 3. Okay, so here answer will be 4 by 3. Let us see question number 10. The question number 10, they have asked about a stepped shaft in which torque is acting, and they are asking the net force that is acting. They have asked that, they have asked the net angular deflection between M and P. M at this end to this end P. How much angular deflection that is taking place. Now you see the torque is acting here. Okay. So these are stepped shafts acting in series. When it is acting in series, we can say that the torque is acting same. Okay. The torque is acting same. Now what is angular deflection, or rather torsional stiffness? Torsional stiffness is the amount of torque required to make a deflection or 1 radian deflection in a particular machine element is nothing but its torsional stiffness. Okay, it is similar to that of spring stiffness given by K. Okay, now here we have also mentioned K, but it is actually a torsional stiffness. Okay, it's a user defined term. So what is this theta? Theta is actually adding up with respect to each shaft. That means theta of MP, this total MP will be equal to theta of Mn plus theta of No plus theta of OP. The torque will be same as I told in each shaft, it's same. So T of MP is equal to T of Mn is equal to T of No is equal to T of OP. It is MP. Now the theta, what will be the theta at MP? The total theta, the total angular deflection that is taking place, that is given by T by K Mn plus T by K No plus T by K OP. That is equal to 10 by 20 plus 10 by 30 plus 10 by 60 is equal to 60 by 60. That is 1 radian. So answer will be 1 radian will be my answer. Question number 11. In terms of theoretical stress concentration factor Kt, the fatigue stress concentration factor Kf, the notch sensitivity Q is expressed as. So what is notch sensitivity? Notch sensitivity, as I've highlighted, notch sensitivity is a susceptibility of a material to succumb the damaging effects of the stress raising notches in a fatigue loading. Basically in terms, Q is equal to increase in actual stress over nominal stress divided by the increase in the theoretical stress over nominal stress. So this Q is given by Kf minus 1 divided by Kt minus 1. So the answer will be Kf minus 1. I think option B will be the answer. Sorry, option A will be the answer. Kf minus 1 divided by Kt minus 1. Kt is the theoretical stress concentration factor. Kf is the actual stress concentration factor. Now let us see question number 12. Yes. Question number 12. The SN curve, the steel become asymptotically. Now what is this asymptotically means? Asymptotically is actually a property of a curve when it tries to meet abscissa or ordinates at infinity. In this case, x is our abscissa here. This particular curve is tending to meet this this x-axis at infinity. Okay. Now in steel, asymptotic curves occurs. Now this is actually an SN curve. You might have seen in your book, it is in terms of a log value of S, rather stress, and log value of n. This stress and this number of cycle, that means how much stress that you give and what is the number of cycle it can that particular machine can execute. This is the correlation between those things. Okay, so basically we read this in chapter where we deal with dynamic stress where dynamic stress are used. Okay, so we generally deal with log curves. So when we use log curve, we get a linear terms, because these value are 10th power of 6. You see the number of cycles here, you will find nearly 1 million, 10 million, these type of value. In order to shorten it, in order to encapsulate it, we generally use log graph. But since they have not mentioned anything, so I will be directly using it. So we know that at 10 power of 6 cycles, the steel structure attains the endurance limit. That means at endurance limit is something, the limit at which the cycle, the machine component is capable of enduring 10th power of 6 cycle. Okay, so therefore the steel structure become asymptotic at 10th power of 6 cycles. Okay, now question number 13. In a window air conditioner, the expansion device used is its capillary tube. Okay, now what is expansion device? Expansion device is the device which is used to convert the saturated liquid state after the condenser to a dry wet vapor state, which pass through evaporator. Okay, now capillary tube is one option, because we can use turbine also as an expansion device, but turbine is quite expensive in nature. That is why we use capillary tube. You can get these in your back of your refrigerator, home refrigerator. So answer will be capillary tube here. Question number 13. Question number 13, they are asked, let me remove this highlighted portion. They have asked chemical dehumidification. So whenever chemical dehumidification comes into picture, you just remember this graph. Point 1. That means our graph is going, our state of gas. Initially, the gas is at this state. I won't be explaining you the psychometric chart, because in the later videos I may be explaining you this, but for the time being, just remember this is a psychometric chart. This is this is specific humidity graph. This is dry bulb temperature, and this is relative humidity graphs in a curvilinear fashion. So when there is a chemical humidification happens, this state goes from this state to this here in a angular linear way. That means our omega is decreasing. That means our specific humidity is decreasing, and our dry bulb temperature is increasing. So therefore, our dry bulb temperature increases and specific humidity decreases. Okay. Now, question number 15. A very beautiful question actually. From here you can get some sort of correlation that the examiner try to establish with previous year question. In the GATE 2003 video, you will find question number 18, which is more or less similar to that of this question. Now they have asked that at time of starting, idling and low speed operation, the carburetor supplies a mixture which can be termed as, it will be, so you see here, answer will be rich mixture is used using starting and idling. Okay, so answer will be rich here. Now what is this air fuel ratio? Air fuel ratio means the parts, suppose air fuel ratio is 9, that means 9 parts of air and 1 part of fuel is actually used at that particular cycle of operation. So when you use till 9, that means air part is 9 and fuel part is 1, it is called rich mixture. Okay, too rich. When it is up to 15, it is combustible range. Okay, generally the stoichiometric ratios come into this picture. We will discuss it here, stoichiometric ratios and all those things. Now when you go beyond this 15 and all those things, it comes under 2 lean mixture, 2 lean to burn. That means air quality is very high, air quantity is very high as compared to the fuel. Therefore there might be a possibility that it may not able to burn the fuel properly. Okay, it may not able to burn the fuel properly, and resulting in the expulsion of carbon monoxide as a gas. Now in the below graph, I've shown you what is the power output and what is this air fuel ratio. From 10 to 12, you will get some higher power. From 12 to 16, you will get some during idling operation you will use here. And for cruising operations, means you are not accelerating, you are doing nothing, you are just sitting coolly, and just you are at a constant acceleration, you are at a constant velocity, your vehicle is running, that is cruising. It's called best economy and it is called cruising, and you will giving almost stoichiometric ratio, but it's the best economic from economic perspective. This air fuel ratio is good, 16 to 20, but the question is from environmental pollution perspective, it is quite dangerous, because carbon monoxide is released, a lot of unburned gases are there when you will increase the quantity of air. Now question number 16 is so the previous year question number 15 answer is rich. Now, in one-dimensional steady-state heat transfer equation of the sphere with the heat regeneration at the rate of Q is written as, see, in order to, whenever you will get this type of question, just remember this equation. That is 1 by r to the power of n del by del r to the power of n del t by del r plus q by k is equal to rho c del t by t divided by k. I will explain each and every term. Whenever you are dealing with, whenever you are dealing with a rectangular coordinates, you just replace r with x or y or z and n is equal to 0. That means this is actually the mother equation of heat and mass transfer. The first equation that you will be dealing in heat transfer in any book, this is this only. From here we will derive the Fourier's equation, and from there we can find the various other generic concepts that has been come through this. Okay, that means in unsteady state, what will be the this is unsteady heat transfer equation. Every other equation that you will get from the conduction chapter will be a simplification of this particular equation only. Okay, so whenever you will get the rectangular coordinates, you just put r is equal to x or y or z, means whichever direction the heat flux is taking place, either in x direction or in y direction or in z direction, and put n value is equal to 0. When you will get a cylindrical coordinate, in order to find the cylindrical coordinate of unsteady heat transfer equation, it is r is equal to 1 and n is equal to 1. For spherical coordinate system, r is equal to 2, n is equal to 2. Okay. Now they have asked spherical coordinate system, so I will put r is equal to 2, n is equal to 2. So keeping, if I put r is equal to 2, n is equal to 2, I will be getting 1 by r square del by del r square del t by del r plus q by k is equal to rho cp by k del t by del t. That means this r is the radius, arbitrary radius, it's nothing but a coordinate, generalized coordinate system in terms of sphere. This del t by del r, that is temperature gradient, that is rate of change of temperature with respect to the radial distance. Q is nothing but the heat generation per unit volume. This is small q. Heat generation within the system, within the solid or system per unit volume. K is the thermal conductivity. Now rho is the density, mass per unit volume. Cp is the heat transfer, or I'm sorry, specific heat per unit pressure, specific heat at constant pressure, Cp. Okay, we generally deal with these terms, mcp delta t, mcv delta t terms. Yeah, that Cp, specific heat at constant pressure. K is the, again, thermal conductivity, watt per meter Kelvin. Then del t by del t is the unsteady term, that is rate of change of temperature with respect to time. Okay, this is the unsteady term. So the answer is, if I go to the options, I will find answer is this. Option B is the answer. So question number 17. Question number 17, an incompressible fluid with a kinematic viscosity 7.4 into 10 power of minus 7 meters square per second, specific gravity 0.88, is held between the two parallel plates. If the top plate is moved with the velocity 0.5 meter per second, with the bottom plate one is held stationary, the fluid attains a linear velocity profile in the gap of 0.55 mm. Between these two plates, the shear stress in a Pascal on the surface of the top plate is. Now you see here, they have given whatever they have given, you can summarize in this particular figure. Okay, looking at the figure, if you go deep in the fluid mechanics, you will find that this is an example of Cotte flow, where the bottom plate is stationary and the upper plate is moving with some velocity. Now in such cases, what we will do, we will simply use Newton's law of viscosity, that is tau is equal to shear stress is equal to dynamic viscosity into du by dy. Now they have given kinematic viscosity. We know that kinematic viscosity is equal to dynamic viscosity is equal to kinematic viscosity into density of the material. They have given specific gravity. When we multiply 1000 into specific gravity, I will get the density of that particular fluid. This is my kinematic viscosity. So whole together I get dynamic viscosity into du, that is the change in the temperature gradient with respect, it's velocity gradient with respect to, rather it's velocity gradient, it's du by dy, that is change in velocity with respect to the distance. So it is 0.5 minus 0 divided by 0.5 mm. So I will keep all these in a SI unit, and you will finally get answer, shear stress is equal to 0.651 Pascal. Answer will be this, 0.651. So this question may be looking very simple, but when you will solve the same question putting the value in a calculator, you may find some you may find some error in your answer. That is the main gist of gate question. So I would request you to solve the gate questions using the gate, you keeping your calculator on your within your hand, so that you can get the correct, you can just match the correct answers, and you can feel confident, because gate examination does not only check your concept but also check your numerical abilities also. So let us move on to the question number 18. Environmental friendly refrigerant R134A is used in the new generation domestic refrigerator. Its chemical formula is. So whenever you found this type of refrigerants R134 and all, just simply replace it with RXYZ. And remember what is XYZ. See, Z is nothing but the number of fluorine atoms, Y minus 1 represents number of hydrogen atoms, and X plus 1 represents number of carbon atom. So X is 1, so 1 plus 1 is 2. So carbon atoms are 2. Then 3 is nothing but my Y minus 1 is the number of hydrogen atoms. So they have given Y is equal to 3. So 3 minus 1, that is 2 hydrogen atoms are there, and Z represents fluorine atoms. So Z is equal to 4. I will simply write F is equal to 4. That means 4 fluorine atoms, 2 hydrogen atoms, and 2 carbon atoms they have asked. So answer will be C2H2F4. C2H2 and F4. Question number 19. A fluid flow is represented by a velocity field this much, where A is a constant. The equation of streamline passing through the point 1, 2 is. Now you see here. Basically they are asking you to derive the streamline equation. So this velocity component consists of two parts. First, x direction or x velocity and y direction velocity. So the streamline equation is very simple. Del x by ux divided by del u by the y component. So del x by ax is equal to del y by ay. Simply put it and I will get the answer. Ln x is equal to ln y by c. Now they have given that it point passes through 1 and 2. Just put the formula 1 and 2 and you will get the corresponding value of c here, that is the constant rather. I got a constant as k, and just put in the mother equation, this equation. Once you put, you will get the equation 2x minus y is equal to 0. 2x minus y is equal to 0. So this is the answer. Question number 20. Again,